Kathleen Hicks makes waves. Sean Kirkpatrick, the lovely Sean Kirkpatrick, goes on ABC and spreads disinformation with the willing assistance of ABC. Basically, it's time for some AARO updates. So get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Oh, and if you wanted to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, there's a PayPal button below, or you can become a channel member. Okay, let's get right to the story. So yeah, ABC did this piece on Sean Kirkpatrick, the lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, director of AARO. And I'm not going to go through it all, partly because there's a lot of music playing. But yeah, it's a lot of disinformation. We get this thing about the pyramids, where they continue to spread the lie told by Bray and Moultrie at the first UAP hearing, that the flying pyramids over the warships were actually a lens effect, a bouquet effect of the lens, which is untrue and was a piece of disinformation spread by Mick West, picked up by Bray and Moultrie. They actually had to go against the findings of their chief scientist, Travis Taylor, who said these were truly anomalous objects and not a lens effect. And he has repeated that statement again after the hearings. But they did not want to go into the hearings talking about giant flying pyramids over their warships. So they invented this story with the assistance of Mick West, who floated this idea that it could be a bouquet effect. And they went with the Mick West explanation over the findings of their chief scientist, Travis Taylor. That's right. The Skinwalker Ranch, Travis Taylor was the chief scientist of the UAP task force. And yeah, so the flying pyramids, truly anomalous objects, but that's not what Bray and Moultrie said. And Sean Kirkpatrick, of course, has leaned into that. And now ABC News is continuing that, saying that most of the sightings can be attributed to mundane causes and, weather balloons and that sort of thing. And then they focus on the Tic Tac in the 2004 Tic Tac incident as being one example of a genuine anomalous sighting. And so like that may be like the only real sighting ever in recorded history. But let's just get to the very end. Sean is asked some questions.
Categorically, you've seen no convincing, confirmable evidence of intact spacecraft kept by the U.S. government?
No. I have seen nothing that leads me to that conclusion.
Is it possible there is some secret program that you're just not aware of?
I don't think so. I have access to anything and everything I need.
Why do you think these whistleblowers are coming forward?
Well, one, I think the recent law, which extended whistleblower protections to them and named AARO as the authorized disclosure authority, opens the door for them to come and tell us exactly what they think they saw or know about.
You believe them?
I believe that they believe what they're telling me, and my job is it's not a question of belief, right? It's a question of what can I go research.
Kirkpatrick says between...
Okay, so yeah, there you go. There's the lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick continuing his mantra that there are no UFOs, as there's certainly no government programs devoted to studying UFOs, and he believes that David Grush believes that this stuff is happening, but that's probably because David Grush has PTSD and et cetera, et cetera. Certainly not because there's any validity to his claims, even though multiple people corroborating David Grush's account have testified behind closed doors to the Inspector General of the Pentagon, and the Inspector General was so moved by the evidence that they showed that he said that David Grush's claims were credible and urgent. But none of that has made its way to Sean Kirkpatrick's desk, so he would say, or if it did, he wouldn't believe it. So there we are, the lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick continuing to do his non-disclosure dance. Now, I expect that from Sean Kirkpatrick, of course. That's what he does. He's an instrument of the control group, whether wittingly or not. Now, I think the evidence strongly suggests that Sean Kirkpatrick is a witting component, a witting tool of the control group. But either way, he is continuing to spread disinformation. But ABC News should do better. They should not be furthering Sean Kirkpatrick's lies and allowing him, aiding and assisting him in his disinformation. Of course, ABC News is establishment media, so what can you expect, right? But that's not the end of the story, because there is more AARO news underway. Kathleen Hicks takes direct oversight of Pentagon's UAP office. New reporting website to be launched. That's right. AARO is actually finally going to get its crap together, maybe. Or at least they're pretending to. So let's get into this a little bit. I'm not going to read the whole article. Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks recently moved to personally oversee the Pentagon's UAP investigation team, formerly known as AARO. Defense Scoop has exclusively learned, and a new website will soon be launched where incidents can be reported. Hicks now holds regular meetings, at least weekly, with AARO's inaugural director, Sean Kirkpatrick, who she's also repositioned to report directly to her. That's right, Sean Kirkpatrick will no longer be reporting directly to Ronald Moultrie, one of the pair that I call Heckle and Jekyll that reported to Congress in the first UAP hearing. And Ronald Moultrie is most certainly a direct agent of the control group. And I don't know about Kathy Hicks, so we'll see about her. The Pentagon's second in charge took action late last month, partly to help speed up AARO's development and launch of a congressionally mandated public website, where the organization will be expected to disclose its unclassified work and findings and offer a secure mechanism via which users can submit their own reports of possible UAP observances. In separate discussions over the last week, Hicks and Pentagon spokesperson Eric Pahan briefed Defense Scoop on new details regarding the Deputy Director's near-term vision for AARO and the latest status of the new website and the reporting mechanism ahead of an official announcement from the DoD, from the Defense Department, expected on Thursday. So there you go. As soon as I release this video, it's going to be obsolete because we're going to get new information coming out. If it comes out before I release this video, I will update this video. But yeah, Hicks says, I believe that transparency is a critical component of AARO's work, and I am committed to sharing AARO's discoveries with Congress and the public, consistent with our responsibility to protect critical national defense and intelligence capabilities. Well, at least she's talking about transparency, but, it's easy to talk about transparency. It's a little harder to deliver. Kathleen Hicks says, AARO is not yet at full operational capability, and I look forward to AARO achieving that in fiscal year 2024. The article goes on to talk about the David Grush hearing, and it says, during the hearing, all witnesses suggested, and one blatantly stated, that AARO has not met its responsibility to seriously engage with potential observers, and that DoD needed better reporting and response mechanisms. During both Kirkpatrick's and the whistleblowers' hearings, a visible point of contention that came up was associated with AARO's seemingly delayed delivery of the fiscal 2023 NDAA mandated website and UAP reporting mechanism. The legislation set a June deadline for the online portal to be supplied by the office. So in other words, there was pressure on them to get this website up and running, and it looks like that may finally be happening. AARO has a timeline, which is interesting, or unofficial timeline. Phase 3 of the timeline, which has not yet been approved, is the NDAA mandated mechanism for AARO to receive reports from the public. Now, that would be really interesting, to actually have Sean Kirkpatrick review the crazy experiences that individuals in the citizenry are actually experiencing. A whole bunch of swamp gas, I'm sure. The article goes on to say that Sean Kirkpatrick had several in-person meetings with the Undersecretary, that's Moultrie, I'm sure he did. The article goes on to talk about the various phases and working with an IT contractor to get the website up and running. And if you care about the specifics of all of that, I will link to the article in the description below. Moving on, so on July 31st, Kathleen Hicks convened them all to discuss AARO's website and ultimately accelerate its creation. She has the ability and used it to bring together all the top actors in the department. I think what she found was that this was being worked at a working level, but it didn't have the right level of senior leader attention until she really kind of drove it home to say, hey, you people around the table are going to make this thing happen, said Payhan. When asked why she went all in on prioritizing AARO as an element under her purview, particularly now, Hicks told Defense Scoop, the department takes UAP seriously because UAP are a potential national security threat. They also pose safety risk and potentially endanger our personnel, our equipment and bases, and the security of our operations. The DoD is focusing through AARO to better understand UAP and improve our capabilities to detect, collect, analyze, and eventually resolve UAP to prevent strategic surprise and protect our forces, our operations, and our nation. So yeah, taking a very national defense position on UAP. Now, to some extent, that's warranted and needed. I mean, we do have objects, violating our sovereign airspace without our permission, abducting our people. So, definitely I can understand why, to some extent, that's necessary. But a big part of me can't help but think this needs to be taken out of the Department of Defense and to be, positioned somewhere entirely differently. I mean, we need to be engaging with visitors from beyond Earth, whether that's from the next planet over or from a different galaxy or a different dimension or whatever we're talking about. Diplomatically, not making war on them, not shooting at them. Can we trust our guys to make the decision about who to shoot at and who not to shoot at? I know I don't trust them. So that's my biggest reservation probably about why it should be taken out of the Department of Defense. I also don't necessarily think it's a great idea to view them as a threat. Again, I can understand why to some degree that would be warranted, but is it wise? I don't know. Of course, maybe it doesn't even matter because AARO is just the face of this whole thing. The deep stuff is the stuff that AARO is denying. The people actually shooting at UFOs and working with other occupants of other UFOs, they're at a much deeper level, and that is a level that AARO is denying even exists. So potentially it doesn't matter where AARO is located, if it's under the Department of Defense or not. Since AARO is just another blue book, it's just all for show. But at the same time, it definitely affects how the public views the phenomenon. And I can't help but think that maybe they shouldn't view it in adversarial terms. Process for submitting these reports via the AARO website is going through a significant security review to ensure that we protect both the privacy of the participants and the security of the site. AARO and the department recognize that members of the general public also desire to make UAP reports, and this capability will be established in the next phase of the website development in the coming months. So yeah, it talks a lot about the website and developing the website and the various problems inherent in such an endeavor. Wrapping it all up, in response to questions regarding how concerned she is that some of these reported UAP encounters could be advanced platforms owned by a U.S. adversary like China or Russia, Hicks said the DoD is always concerned about the potential threats of new advanced technology being used by our adversaries. That's why the department takes UAP seriously. We need to understand these UAP that exhibit behaviors not readily understood by our sensors or observers to ensure they are not a threat to our homeland. Again, beating the threat narrative drum, which rubs me the wrong way, although again, I can see why to a certain extent it is warranted. But if some UAP are a threat, they are Well, I don't want to say they're not an overt threat, because look at what's going on in Peru. You know, there are elements of the UFO phenomenon that are definitely an overt threat or causing overt harm. But in aggregate, you know, as a big apparatus, the phenomenon is very varied, and there's a lot of good parts to it and some bad parts to it, and some of it may reflect our own consciousness. It gets very weird and very hard to understand, and I don't pretend to. But there do seem to be elements of the control group that are working with elements of the phenomenon. And they may or may not have a bigger picture view of this. Of course, a lot of their information is going to be coming through what the beings tell them. Can you trust that information? Maybe, maybe not. But the point is, there is already contact going on with beings from beyond. And that is kind of the critical feature, right? So AARO is just this blue book placeholder, thing made for the public's consumption and to make us feel better, like the government is actually doing something. Well, they are doing something. They're working with the beings. That's what the evidence suggests. And, there's Lockheed Martin Skunk Works engineers that say, hey, yeah, we've been working with the beings since the late 50s or 60s. And I've made multiple videos about that, so go check those out. But that's what the evidence seems to indicate. So we've got contact with ETs going on right now. And meanwhile, they're trying to distract us or placate us with AARO. No! We need to know what's going on. They're making deals with aliens. They're shooting at other aliens. What the hell is going on? They need to be open. They need to be transparent. We need to rip the can off this can of worms, rip the lid off this can of worms, and, get some answers. And we need to have some involvement in what is going on, because we can't trust these yahoos to make a good decision on this. Do you trust Sean Kirkpatrick or the likes of Sean Kirkpatrick? I don't. We need to have some involvement in what is going on. We need to know what these people that we're paying to do this are actually doing, and maybe even change the direction of what they're doing. It makes me so frustrated. But you guys might be wondering, well, who's Kathleen Hicks? Well, let's watch a couple minutes of this interview with Jon Stewart, and you'll see how weirdly defensive she gets. Well, I say weirdly, but she's talking about missing money. I might be defensive about that too if I were overseeing a bunch of corrupt DOD people. But let's listen to this interview for a moment.
Do you feel like these are unfair questions of somebody within a department of that size and scope?
I
do you feel that it's somewhat unfair?
You have a particular thing you really want to talk about, and you're asking me other questions. But I don't think it's unfair to ask me about the audit. It's absolutely the case that the United States military should be able to pass an audit, and we've got to be on that pathway to get there.
But don't you think that does speak to the larger point that we're trying to get at, which is good journalism uncovers corruption? And
good journalism does uncover corruption, but I'm not sure these two things are linked. An audit is not.
But they are.
Okay, so you need to explain to me, do you understand what an audit does and the degree to which it is linked to the question that you're asking?
I believe so.
Okay, go ahead. Give me your explanation.
No, I don't mind learning. So what I would suggest is that the audit that they have in the military doesn't really look at whether or not there's efficacy. It's just whether they got delivered the thing that they ordered. And
that is any audit. That is any audit. That is true.
But generally, those audits aren't $400 billion for Raytheon and $1.7 trillion for a plane that does.
Anyway, I'll let you watch this full interview at your leisure. But I just wanted to point out, how defensive she was getting. And do we want her running AARO or overseeing AARO, rather? Do we want AARO positioned under this lady that's basically defending the corruption going on in the Pentagon? I don't know, but kudos to Jon Stewart for asking for some tough questions. Finally, some thoughts from Lou Elizondo. Lou knew 2 years ago that placing AARO in OUSDI would hinder transparency. Finally, Deputy Secretary Hicks realized she was being hoodwinked and decided to have AARO report directly to her. While praising Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks' attention to the UFO issue, Elizondo expressed concern that Hicks is being hoodwinked by certain elements and members of her own staff. According to Elizondo, if Hicks had the complete picture, she would not have made the decision to place the UFO mission under the purview of OUSDNI. That's Moultrie. Pressed on his reservations over OUSD INS tackling the UFO phenomenon, Elizondo pointed to a combination of ineptitude, moral objection to the topic, and classic stigma and taboo. Also, Moultrie's an agent of the control group, Lou. But that's just me. Maybe Lou's right, and it's all about ineptitude and moral objection to the topic. But I don't think so. Expanding on this point, Elizondo stated documentation exists that, if made public, would illustrate the sense of urgency and the need for a neutral, unbiased, and objective office to investigate the UFO phenomenon. So let me know in your comments below if you think that's what's going on, if placing AARO under the direct purview of Kathleen Hicks is actually going to finally create this unbiased office that is actually going to get us closer to transparency and disclosure. Or is Kathleen Hicks just one more agent of the control group? Or is she just, part of the system and is just doing her job, just doing her shift, and she's just going to go along to get along and do whatever the powers that be want her to do? So, just a cog in the machine. I don't know enough about her. What I've seen about Kathleen Hicks hasn't really inspired me to have a whole lot of confidence in her. I don't have any confidence in Ronald Moultrie, though. He is obviously an agent of the control group in my mind. And the lovely Sean Kirkpatrick is almost certainly an agent of the control group as well. He has gone out of his way to lie and lie and lie repeatedly. He didn't need to go that far out of his way to blatantly lie time and time again. In the hearing and the UAP report, the paper he and Avi Loeb wrote together, which Sean Kirkpatrick was using Avi Loeb's veneer of respectability to advance disinformation, suggesting that all the UAP we were seeing it all came from one mothership that dropped off some drones at some point in the past. Something like that. There's no beings, there's no abductions. It's just all a bunch of drones, potentially. So, yeah, that's, Sean Kirkpatrick using Avi Loeb to advance this obvious disinformation. So, so anyway, I've ranted about the lovely Sean Kirkpatrick enough. See my previous videos about that and all the examples where he has lied, and I take you through each step. So, I don't have any faith in him. Do I have any more faith in him under the purview of Kathleen Hicks than I do Ronald Moultrie? Now, that's a good question. I really don't know what to make of that. If indeed Sean Kirkpatrick is a witting agent of the control group, you would expect him to act more or less the same under Kathleen Hicks as he did under Moultrie. However, if indeed he is just, another J. Allen Hynek who was given this mission to debunk this stuff, but is actually an independent thinker, and if he's presented with enough evidence, he might actually come to conclude that the UAP phenomenon is real and deserves study, etc. So could he turn into a, latter-day J. Allen Hynek and switch sides and become, invested in the UAP topic and the truth behind the UAP topic if he's placed under Kathleen Hicks? I would be really surprised if that happened, but I'm not saying it couldn't. But yeah, what are the odds? What are the odds? But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And if you've enjoyed this video, give me a big thumbs up. For sure to appreciate it. Smash the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of future videos. You don't want to miss a thing. Join me on social media. There's Facebook and Twitter links below. I would love to see you guys there. There are plenty of other videos to check out on the channel. Oh, and if you wanted to support Cosmic Road in a bigger way, of course, there's a PayPal button below, or you can become a channel member. Channel members are rock stars, and I really appreciate you guys' support. Thank you so much. See you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road signing out. Okay, update. This is direct from Sean Kirkpatrick, Director's Message. Welcome to the website for the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. Our team of experts is leading the U.S. government's efforts to address UAP using a rigorous scientific framework and a data-driven approach. My mind is at rest. Since its establishment in July 2022, AARO has taken important steps to improve data collection, standardize reporting requirements, and mitigate the potential threats to safety and security posed by UAP. We look forward to using this site to regularly update the public about AARO's work and fundings and to provide a mechanism for UAP reporting. Thank you for visiting Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the lovely director. So there you go. AARO now has a website. Breaking news.